Julian held a swirl of soft-serve ice cream to Caleb's lips, a sweet barrier against his gaze. From across the park, Leo tilted his head, his focus entirely on the way Caleb's hand rested at his side, relaxed and still. The summer crowd, a river of bodies and noise, soon flowed between them, swallowing Caleb's hand from view. Leo felt a pang of disappointment and was about to look away when the person blocking his sight shifted. The view cleared, and Leo's eyes widened. That hand, the one he had been watching, slowly lifted, its fingers closing around the cone Julian offered. The gentle melody from Leo's guitar died with a dissonant strum. He let the instrument rest against his thigh as he sank onto the stone bench in the shade, his earlier enthusiasm gone. He pulled a lollipop from his pocket, tearing the wrapper away and placing the candy in his mouth. He remembered how Caleb had turned down the mints he'd offered, yet accepted this sticky, sweet dessert from Julian. It wasn't that Caleb didn't like gooey sweets, or that he didn't habitually chew mints when trying to quit smoking. The problem, Leo surmised, was not the gift but the giver. His own offering held no weight compared to the one from Julian. It seemed even their long history meant nothing. Leo rested his chin on the neck of his guitar, sighing as he stared out at the distant shimmer of the river, and so he missed the thoughtful, backward glance Caleb sent in his direction. Julian, licking his own cone, complained bitterly about Leo's relentless presence. Caleb finished his ice cream in 2 large bites, his brow furrowed as he fished a small metal tin from his pocket. He popped a mint into his mouth and told Julian that from now on, he should just get ice cream for himself. Julian pouted but agreed, his gaze falling to the green tin in Caleb's hand. He asked his brother why he'd suddenly decided to quit smoking. Caleb's hand paused on the tin. After a long moment, he gave a dismissive reply, claiming that there wasn't always a reason for such things, that he just felt like it. Julian, taking this at face value, didn't press the issue. Caleb unconsciously raised a hand to rub at his brow. In truth, even he couldn't fully articulate the reason. While his habit wasn't severe, anyone who got close enough could detect the faint scent of smoke on him. It had never been an issue before, surrounded as he was by other guys who smoked. For some reason, the answer he gave Julian felt true. He didn't know why he was quitting. The impulse had just struck him one day, a primal instinct telling him it was time for a change. As the sun began to set, Leo and Evan packed up their guitars, their stint as street performers over. They found an open patch of grass on the riverbank to sit and wait for the grand fireworks display. The last time he'd been in a crowd this dense and loud for fireworks had been stateside, for the 4th of July. The city where he'd gone to college put on a massive celebration. He, an outsider in a sea of unfamiliar faces, had climbed to the highest point in the city to watch the brilliant, fleeting explosions alone. It was supposed to make up for a missed opportunity, but it had only led to a deeper sense of loss. The person who should have been beside him was not only a stranger but was separated from him by half a globe, an entire ocean, and a 14-hour time difference. He recalled a trip with Caleb to Japan during the summer, where they had luckily stumbled upon a local fireworks festival. But on the day of the event, Leo had overslept. Before drifting off, he had specifically asked Caleb to wake him 2 hours before it started. Caleb had been lounging in the courtyard, soaking up the sun. As dusk fell, he went to the bedroom to rouse Leo. He called his name once, then again with no response. Caleb walked over and sat cross-legged on the floor beside the tatami mat, gently patting Leo's cheek. He'd spoken softly, telling him the sun had set and they would be late. Leo, still deep in sleep, had nuzzled against the warmth of Caleb's palm, murmuring for him not to bother him. Caleb hadn't quite heard, so he leaned closer, his ear near Leo's lips, asking what he'd said. In his sleep, Leo had pursed his lips and, on instinct, pressed a soft kiss to Caleb's ear. He then wrapped his arms around Caleb's neck, pulling him down unexpectedly. Caught off guard, Caleb tumbled onto him. His gaze softened as he noticed the faint shadows under Leo's eyes. He gently brushed a thumb across the delicate skin before sighing softly. He unwrapped Leo's arms from his neck, rolled off him, and then lifted the blanket, sliding in beside him without a word. He wrapped an arm around Leo's waist, pulled him close, and closed his eyes. When Leo awoke, the room was dark, save for the sliver of moonlight tracing the window frame. An arm was clamped tightly around his waist, and the owner of that arm, who had also stolen half his pillow, was sleeping soundly beside him. A sudden wave of clarity washed over Leo, and he yelped, sitting bolt upright. He scrambled astride the sleeping figure, indignantly pinching his cheeks. The man stirred, his hands moving to Leo's back, his thumbs tracing the sharp lines of his shoulder blades through the thin fabric of his shirt. He then pulled Leo down against his chest, his voice rough with sleep as he grumbled about the late-night screaming. Leo tried to push himself up but couldn't break free. In frustration, he bit down lightly on the man's lower lip, his words muffled and full of accusation. He complained that Caleb was supposed to wake him, that he'd not only failed to do so but had also stolen his pillow and blanket. The more he spoke, the more upset he became at the thought of missing what might have been his only chance to see the fireworks. His eyelashes trembled with unshed tears. Caleb, watching him, felt something stir in his chest. He reached up and gently flicked a finger against Leo's lashes, his voice casual as he offered to make it up to him now. Leo paused, his sleep-addled mind struggling to comprehend how Caleb planned to compensate him. Caleb offered to give him a private fireworks show. Leo's initial surprise quickly turned to suspicion. He wondered when his boyfriend had become so romantic. He cautiously reached out to touch Caleb's face, reassuring himself it was really him. As he tried to pull his hand back, Caleb caught his wrist, pressing it down against his own body. The firm, hot reality beneath his palm made Leo freeze. Caleb held him close, a low chuckle rumbling in his chest as he asked if he wanted to see the fireworks. Leo, flustered, scrambled out of his embrace, insisting he didn't want to see them anymore. Leo never expected to see Caleb and Julian again that night. The darkness was dotted with the faint glows of phone screens, like a field of scattered stars. Evan shifted beside him, complaining under his breath about the size of the crowd. He joked that you'd think no one had ever seen fireworks before. Leo remarked that with so many people in the country, everywhere was crowded. Evan sighed, stating he was just trying to make a joke and that Leo was no fun. Leo went back to scrolling through his Facebook feed, ignoring him. A moment later, his right elbow was nudged. Without looking up, he grumbled for Evan to stop, that he'd almost made him drop his phone. Evan ignored his and nudged him again, his voice urgent with excitement, telling him to look. Leo, in the middle of typing a comment to a friend, was caught off guard by the sudden jolt. His phone slipped from his grasp, tumbling down the small grassy slope. It expertly dodged every person in its path until it came to a stop against the back of a guy sitting at the bottom of the hill. The guy reached back and grabbed the phone. Leo looked up, about to ask Evan to retrieve it, but when he saw the face of the guy who was now looking for the phone's owner, he quickly changed his mind. He just stared silently at Evan, who simply shrugged with an innocent expression. Evan explained that he'd been trying to tell him the guy he liked was sitting right below them. Caleb carefully made his way up the slope, stepping around the other spectators. Julian watched him approach, a smirk on his face as he asked sarcastically if Leo had followed them all the way from campus. Leo, refusing to be outdone, adopted Julian's mocking tone and replied that, for once, he hadn't been following them. Julian shot him a glare but said nothing more. Any desire Leo had to exchange a few words with Caleb vanished at the sight of Julian's smug expression. He held out his hand to Caleb and said, plainly and simply, that he wanted his phone back. Thank you. Caleb held up the dark screen device, raising an eyebrow as he questioned if it was really his phone. Leo, confused by the question, confirmed that of course it was his. Then, as if a thought struck him, his eyes widened in disbelief. He asked if Caleb could possibly think he'd intentionally thrown someone else's phone down the hill just to have an excuse to talk to him. Caleb ignored the first part of his question, remarking that he had come down to get his phone as a way to talk to him. Leo clamped his mouth shut, mentally cursing himself for being an idiot. Caleb didn't press the issue and placed the phone in his outstretched palm. His hand didn't immediately pull away. Instead, he used his thumb to wake the screen, illuminating a lock screen photo. He pointed to it, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips, and commented that anyone who didn't know better would probably think it was his phone. Leo was mortified. What do you do when the person you haven't even won over yet discovers your lock screen is a candid photo you secretly took of them? Disappearing on the spot seemed like a good option, but it was clearly too late for that. He snapped his hand shut, hiding the screen from view, his gaze fixed on nothing as he tried to stammer out an explanation. His mind was a complete blank. Finally, he gave up and blurted out that Caleb might not believe him, but the phone took the picture by itself. The moment the words left his mouth, he realized how utterly unbelievable his excuse was. He closed his eyes in despair, surrendering to the inevitable humiliation. Sure enough, he heard Caleb's cold laugh and the comment that he wouldn't even try that lie on a ghost. Under Caleb's unwavering gaze, Leo miserably changed his wallpaper and deleted the one and only secret photo he had of him from his gallery. He trudged back up the slope to Evan, feeling like he'd lost far more than he'd gained. Just as he sat down, a sudden whoosh of air shot up from the opposite riverbank, exploding into a dazzling bloom of color against the night sky. Excited shouts and whistles erupted around them. Leo sat stunned for a second, not realizing the show had started. Evan let out a whoop and pulled his guitar from its case, starting to strum along with the festive atmosphere. His cheerful, rhythmic music blended with the surrounding hum of conversation and laughter. Soon, even Evan was on his feet, swept up in the collective joy. Leo remained seated, a solitary figure in a sea of celebration. He rested his chin on his knees, his gaze drawn to the spot below where Caleb sat. The fireworks burst and cascaded across the sky, illuminating half the world. Leo's eyes were wide. His chin lifted from his knees as he leaned forward instinctively. In his line of sight, Julian glanced quickly up at him before turning back and squatting down in front of Caleb, his face tilted up. The last thing Leo saw before the firework faded was Caleb's hand lifting to cup Julian's chin. The brilliant light vanished, leaving only a few dying embers to fall into the river. Darkness returned, and time seemed to freeze. Leo waited, his heart pounding like it was being boiled alive. But the next rocket never came. All that followed was a collective sigh of disappointment from the crowd. It was over already. It had been too short. Evan's voice called his name, but Leo didn't hear him. He clenched a handful of grass, his jaw tight, a cold dread seeping through his veins. Did they kiss or not? Leo didn't drink or smoke, but his boyfriend did. Caleb had started smoking in high school. It was only when they became roommates in college that Leo learned the full story. Back when Caleb lived in the standard university dorms, two of his three roommates, him and Marcus, were smokers. During one of their late-night bull sessions, Marcus was excitedly talking about the most popular girl in the foreign languages department, Chloe. Liam, the third roommate, lay quietly in his bed, not participating. Leo, propped up against his pillows, pretended to be engrossed in his phone, but he was secretly listening to every word. For every 5 sentences Marcus spoke, Caleb would offer a lazy, one-word response. It wasn't until Marcus dropped the final tidbit, mentioning that Chloe had supposedly had a crush on Caleb for a long time, that Caleb finally stopped scrolling on his phone. He made a sound of interest, feigning a desire to hear more. Through the thin white curtain of his bunk, Leo nervously peeked at the bed across from him. Marcus, sensing his advantage, added that if Caleb didn't react to this news, he'd start to think he was actually gay. Caleb didn't confirm or deny it, but began to ask Marcus questions about Chloe, acting as if he was ready to ask her out the moment he confirmed she was attractive enough. Leo's stomach twisted with anxiety, but he couldn't find a way to interject. In a burst of frustration, he suddenly spoke up. He stopped short when he realized both Marcus and Caleb had fallen silent and were now looking at him. A nervous sweat broke out on his palms. When he didn't continue, Marcus kindly prompted him, asking what he was going to say. Cornered, Leo took a deep breath and said that he wished they wouldn't smoke in the room every day, that he felt like he was starting to smell of stale smoke all the time. As he spoke, feigning a casual tone, he was frantically texting Liam for backup, a desperate plea for help. He typed that he had a huge crush on the girl they were talking about and couldn't stand it anymore. After hitting send, he realized the absurdity of his lie. He closed his eyes in despair, but upon reflection, admitted it wasn't a terrible excuse. He couldn't exactly announce that he was the one with the crush on Caleb and couldn't bear to hear him talk so enthusiastically about a girl. Just then, Liam spoke up from his bunk, his voice serious, agreeing that the constant smoking in the room was a problem. Caleb said they would just smoke on the balcony from then on. Marcus chuckled and agreed, teasingly calling them a couple of delicate girls who couldn't handle a little smoke. The topic of Chloe was dropped. Leo slid down under his covers, relieved, but a new anxiety took its place. He couldn't decipher Caleb's attitude. If he was really interested in Chloe, why had he been flirting with him? He tossed and turned all night. The next morning, Caleb asked him about the previous night's outburst, and Leo knew his little ruse hadn't worked. He stammered, avoiding Caleb's dark, intense gaze, unable to give a coherent answer. He could rehearse saying "I like you," Caleb 1,000 times in front of a mirror, but when it mattered, the words wouldn't come out. He tried to change the subject, his nervous laughter filling the air. He was so consumed by his own panic that he missed the deep disappointment in Caleb's eyes. Unable to get a straight answer from Leo, Caleb went to Liam. Liam, though confused by Caleb's persistence, honestly relayed what Leo had told him, that he had a long-standing crush on the girl from the foreign languages department. Caleb's expression hardened, the corners of his eyes turning cold. His lips pressed into a thin, angry line. Later that day, he cornered Leo in an empty classroom after class, his face a mask of indifference as he asked if he had someone he liked. Leo stammered that he did, wondering how Caleb knew. Caleb continued, his voice flat, asking if it was true he'd liked this person for a long time. Leo's heart hammered against his ribs as he confirmed that Caleb knew everything. Caleb's face was dark as he asked, enunciating each word, if it was the most popular girl in the foreign languages department. By now, Leo was completely bewildered and just numbly agreed. It was only when he saw the icy fury in Caleb's eyes that he snapped back to reality, shaking his head frantically, trying to deny it. In that moment of panic, he finally understood what Caleb's reaction meant. A slow smile spread across his face, and the worries that had plagued him for days dissolved. He heard his own voice, light and airy, say that it was him. The person he liked was Caleb. The response was Caleb's lips crashing down on his. Leo stood frozen for a moment before pushing him away, doubling over in a fit of coughing. He wiped at the tears that had sprung to his eyes and complained that Caleb's mouth tasted like smoke. Caleb, who had chain-smoked 3 cigarettes after hearing Liam's story and had forgotten to chew any gum, realized his mistake. Their first kiss was nothing like he had imagined. In a fit of frustration, Caleb decided then and there to quit smoking. After that dorm room conversation, Marcus, assuming Caleb had some interest in Chloe, took it upon himself to arrange a group hangout with her and her roommate, whom he had admittedly been trying to get to know for a while. That night, in a private karaoke room, Chloe sat confidently beside Caleb. She was surprisingly outgoing and easy to talk to, the kind of girl who could easily become one of the guys. Caleb was a little taken aback and, for the first time, actually engaged in a conversation with her about basketball. Leo sat cross-legged on the sofa, playing a game on his phone, but his eyes kept flicking over to Chloe's profile. He had to admit she was hard to dislike. One of Chloe's friends, a girl with short, dark hair and expressive eyes, quietly slid onto the sofa next to him. She leaned in and teased him, asking if he had a thing for her friend. Leo calmly met her gaze, neither confirming nor denying, just offering a small smile. The girl leaned closer, whispering that if Caleb wasn't in the picture, he would be exactly Chloe's type. Leo was stunned and turned to her, confused. The girl sat up, a cute smile on her face, and asked if he was looking for a girlfriend, one who went to college, spoke English, and could draw. Before he could answer, a low, cool voice cut in. Caleb had sat down between them. He stated that the person he liked needed to be tall, a computer science major, dislike sweets, be good at basketball and video games, have good grades, and be good-looking. The short-haired girl remarked that his standards were quite high. After Caleb left, Chloe privately asked Marcus if he was sure Caleb was interested in her, because she got the impression he was more into her roommate. Marcus looked over at Caleb, who was now sitting between Leo and the short-haired girl, and for a moment, he wasn't sure what to think either. The group hangout ended shortly after. As they were hailing cabs outside the karaoke bar, an employee ran out, asking if anyone had left a phone in the room. Marcus, being the closest, took the phone. The screen lit up and he saw a picture of Caleb as the lock screen. He was confused for a second, wondering when Caleb had gotten the same model phone as Leo. He turned and called out to Caleb, who was talking to Chloe, telling him he'd forgotten his phone. When he saw Caleb look at him in surprise, holding his own phone in his hand, Marcus's mind went blank. The words caught in his throat. A chilling thought began to form. Caleb, looking slightly puzzled, asked him what was wrong with his phone. Leo appeared from behind Caleb, a nervous smile on his face as he explained that the phone was his. Chloe, not wanting to lose her chance, pressed Caleb again, asking him to tell her what kind of girl he liked. Caleb turned to her and answered breezily that he liked someone tall, a computer science major, who loved sweets, couldn't play basketball, was terrible at video games, had mediocre grades, and was just okay looking. At the same time, Marcus noticed that while Leo's expression remained calm, the back of his neck was bright red. Liam, standing nearby, asked Leo if he was hot, commenting on how flushed his neck was. After the group hangout, Leo's phone really did go missing. He searched his dorm room thoroughly before remembering he'd had gym class that morning and it must have slipped out of his pocket. After 2 days with no response to his lost and found post online, he gave up hope and started looking at new phones. 2 days later, during a large lecture, someone came into the classroom and returned the phone to Caleb, explaining they'd recognized his picture on it. Back in the dorm, Caleb tossed the phone to Leo, who had skipped class to sleep in. A knowing smile played on his lips as he remarked that with his picture as the lock screen, everyone would assume it was his phone. With no one else around, Leo spun around in his chair and wrapped his arms around Caleb's waist. He grinned and said that it was because Caleb's face was so recognizable. He pointed out that as soon as the phone was lost, it was immediately returned. Caleb tilted his chin up with his fingers, leaning in slightly, his eyes darkening. He warned that using his photo as a lock screen without permission came with a price. Leo's gaze sharpened as he asked what the price was. A slight curve appeared on Caleb's lips, and his voice was low with a hint of amusement as he said that Leo was never allowed to change it. Caleb tilted Julian's chin up, pushing his face back, his expression bordering on cruel. He asked Julian if he had forgotten everything he'd told him. Julian hadn't forgotten. He rubbed his jaw and stood up reluctantly, pouting that he was just trying to help Caleb make Leo give up. A secret joy bloomed in his chest. He didn't know what had gone wrong, but it was obvious Caleb didn't like Leo. Maybe he still had a chance to push Leo out of Caleb's life for good. But Caleb extinguished his hope with a splash of cold water, telling him it had nothing to do with him, that he should just mind his own business. Julian's heart plummeted. He clenched his fists and shouted that it did concern him, asking if Caleb wasn't his boyfriend right now. Caleb stuck his hands in his pockets and leaned down, looking at Julian like he was a spoiled child demanding a new phone after failing a test. He stated that their 2-month agreement had half a month left. They could either end the relationship now or in half a month, Julian would have to accept it and go back to calling him his brother. Leo typed a message, then deleted it. Typed it again, then deleted it again. He pushed his face out from under the covers and knelt on the bed, hugging a pillow, his eyes fixed on Evan, who was taking selfies on the opposite bunk. He asked if Evan thought they had kissed. Evan, adjusting his hair for the camera, answered distractedly, asking why he cared if they kissed, that this wasn't some old-fashioned drama. Leo retorted that he couldn't control his own feelings of sadness. Evan finally turned to look at him properly, offering a sincere apology. He admitted that Leo did look genuinely upset and that he had never personally experienced such a feeling. He pointed out that Leo had only seen Caleb reach for Julian's chin. Maybe he was just pushing him away. But Leo explained that Caleb liked to hold his chin when he kissed. Evan's expression turned to one of shock as he asked if Leo had already kissed Caleb, and if his current boyfriend didn't want to kill him for it. Leo clarified that he was talking about his ex, that his ex liked to hold his chin when they kissed. And since Caleb and his ex were very similar, he assumed they would have similar habits. Evan was confused for a moment, asking if Leo saw Caleb as a stand-in for his ex, and if so, why he didn't just get back together with his ex after returning to the country. Leo froze, then rested his chin on his knees, muttering to himself that he had tried, but his ex already had a new boyfriend. His voice grew quieter until it was barely audible. He looked up, his dark eyes glistening as if it had just rained. When he went to the English club meeting again, Leo was disappointed not to see Caleb. After the session, Jessica, the girl who had pulled him into a board game at the last gathering, handed him a ticket to the welcome gala. She urged him to go, explaining that the front row seats were for internal distribution only. Leo took the ticket, confused, and was about to ask a question when a new arrival diverted his attention. A girl in a loose basketball jersey and shorts strode in and plopped down on a desk, asking the club president what their performance would be for the welcome gala this year. The president hadn't even spoken when the girl playing Juliet held up her script and sighed that it was Romeo and Juliet again. The girl in the basketball jersey raised an eyebrow, remarking that if she remembered correctly, that's what they had done last year. The president calmly stated that it didn't matter, since the freshmen attending the gala were different each year. During their conversation, Leo's gaze remained on the girl. She had a casual air about her, her long dark hair tied back in a messy ponytail. She wore no makeup, but her skin was clear and her features were striking. He belatedly recognized her as Chloe, the girl from the foreign languages department who had once had a crush on Caleb. Jessica led Chloe over to Leo, introducing her as her beautiful best friend, who would be the host of the gala. Leo nodded and said hello. Jessica leaned in, lowering her voice, and told him the seat she'd given him was right next to Caleb's, and the rest was up to him. Leo was stunned for a second, asking how she knew. Jessica cut him off, saying that everyone in the English club knew by now. She assured him that she had already spoken to Chloe, who would also help him. She nudged her friend, who smiled and added that he had to act fast because a lot of people at their school had a crush on Caleb. She gave him a playful wink, admitting she was one of them. Leo nodded, still a bit dazed. It wasn't until after they left that he wondered what exactly they were planning to help him with at the gala. In the early evening, with the sun still high in the sky, Leo sought the shade, his daytime clothes wrinkled and damp with sweat. He showered and washed his hair, using the citrus-scented shampoo that was Caleb's favorite, before heading out. He wasn't even sure if Caleb would be at the gala. From what he knew, Caleb would rather stay in his dorm and code than attend some chaotic event. So, he was surprised to see him standing in front of a vending machine in a quiet corner of the campus. Caleb had his back to him, fumbling with his wallet. He seemed to be trying to buy a drink, but the machine kept spitting out his crumpled bills. Caleb shifted his feet impatiently. Leo pulled a few coins from his pocket and counted them in his palm. 3 quarters, exactly enough for a load of laundry. He crept up behind Caleb and suddenly extended his hand, palm up, revealing the coins. Caleb jumped, turning with a frown to see who it was. He asked what Leo was doing. Leo grinned and said he was lending him some change. Before Caleb could respond, he pushed the coins into the slot. His eyes scanned the selection, and he noted with some regret that it was only enough for a canned drink. He turned back to Caleb with a completely natural expression and asked if he wanted a Coke or a Fanta. Caleb said Coke, thank you. Leo mumbled that he knew he wanted Coke. He bent down to retrieve the can that rolled out and handed it to Caleb. Caleb pulled a $10 bill from his wallet to repay him. Leo made a show of patting his pockets, sighing that he didn't have any change right now, so maybe Caleb could just give him the coins next time, since he needed them for laundry. Caleb didn't argue. He took the Coke and started walking towards the auditorium. After a few steps, he noticed Leo was still following him. He turned with a weary expression and asked why he was trailing him. Leo pursed his lips, his expression innocent, and held up his own ticket to the welcome gala. Caleb remained where he was, looking completely drained, and said that if they were going the same way, Leo should hurry up. A moment later, the meaning of his words sank in, and Leo, almost giddy with surprise, rushed to catch up, falling into step beside him. He beamed at Caleb, his bright smile as unrestrained as a puppy wagging its tail, ready to roll over and expose its belly at the slightest sign of affection. Caleb gave him an unreadable look, his throat moving as if he was about to speak, but he remained silent. As they reached the entrance to the auditorium, Chloe, now in a formal dress and makeup, waved at them from a distance. As Leo followed Caleb over, Chloe finished her phone call and struck up a conversation with Caleb. Her familiar and natural tone with him made Leo feel a pang of jealousy. They seemed to have known each other for a long time. Chloe looked at Caleb with a troubled expression, explaining that the guy who was supposed to present her with flowers on stage had bailed at the last minute and asked if he would do her the favor. Caleb, without a second thought, refused, suggesting she just cut that part of the show. Chloe said she couldn't, because the flowers had already been bought. She then turned her smiling gaze to Leo, suggesting that he could do it instead, since he was handsome enough for the stage. Leo, surprised, pointed at himself, then nodded in agreement. Chloe exclaimed that he was so much more agreeable and took him by the arm, leading him towards a small side door backstage. As they moved past, Leo felt something brush against the fingers of his hanging hand. He glanced back quickly but saw nothing, dismissing it as his imagination. He rubbed his fingers together and then raised his hand to wave goodbye to Caleb. Caleb, almost imperceptibly, pressed a hand against his other arm, a flicker of annoyance and confusion in his eyes. He wondered what he had just been about to do. Had he been trying to stop Leo? And when had Leo and Chloe become so familiar with each other? Chloe explained that her opening act was a piano piece, and she just needed him to bring her the flowers at the end. Leo nodded, agreeing that it was no problem. He sat backstage, fiddling with the petals of a deep red rose from the bouquet. He remarked that he thought she liked Caleb too, and that they seemed to be on good terms. He suggested that if she had insisted, Caleb wouldn't have refused her. Chloe shrugged nonchalantly, acknowledging that she and Caleb were good friends. She stated that if he had any romantic interest in her, they would have been together by now, and since he didn't, she wasn't going to force it. Leo was taken aback and didn't know how to respond. Chloe, realizing how she might have sounded, quickly added that she was just that way herself and that she was rooting for him. She admitted that she simply didn't have the courage to pursue a guy herself. Leo smiled, his expression back to normal. Seeing that he hadn't taken her words to heart, Chloe breathed a quiet sigh of relief and moved on. Chloe was undeniably one of the most beautiful girls at the university. She was tall, slim, and had an outgoing personality. When she played the piano, she was the picture of elegance. As she stood to bow, the auditorium erupted in applause. Leo, carrying the bouquet, walked onto the stage and was immediately engulfed in the wave of sound. He realized that not only would he be seen as an enemy by every guy with a crush on Chloe, But now the girls would likely view him as a rival for her affections as well. Of course, there were plenty of others just enjoying the show, whistling and cheering for him to confess his feelings. Even Leo, who was no longer a teenager, felt a blush creep up his neck in the charged atmosphere. His eyes scanned the audience, finally landing on a seat in the middle of the second row, where Caleb's face was intermittently illuminated by the stage lights. For a fleeting moment, caught up in the excitement, he felt the urge to stand there on stage, look Caleb straight in the eye, and confess everything. But the impulse passed as quickly as it came. He smiled, a sense of clarity washing over him. He turned and practically ran off the stage, heading straight for the seat where Caleb was, as if he were running towards the light. However, it seemed his light didn't want to see him. As he sat down, Caleb looked at him with undisguised suspicion, asking if he had switched seats with someone. Leo insisted that it wasn't his fault, that this was the seat number on his ticket. Caleb just said, "Oh," in a tone that clearly meant he didn't believe him. Leo sighed, feeling unjustly accused, and propped his chin on his hand, stealing glances at Caleb's handsome profile. To his surprise, Caleb, who usually ignored his blatant staring, suddenly turned his head and met his gaze directly. Caught off guard, Leo quickly looked away, then forced himself to look back with a calm expression. He saw Caleb's lips part slightly, as if to speak, the movement reflected in his own pupils like a slow-motion film clip. He heard his name spoken. Leo, startled, finally responded, stammering that the way Caleb was saying his name so seriously made him feel like he was at a wedding. Caleb replied that, in that case, Leo would be the best man. Leo's eyes widened as he watched a small smile flicker at the corner of Caleb's mouth before being quickly suppressed. Caleb acted as if nothing had happened, but Leo couldn't let it go. He leaned forward, placing a hand on Caleb's arm, his eyes fixed on his lips. He declared with absolute certainty that Caleb had just smiled and he had seen it. His tone was as solemn as if he were announcing he'd witnessed a meteor strike that no one else had seen. Caleb denied it, saying he was mistaken. Leo insisted he wasn't. Caleb suddenly said his name again. Leo, flustered, asked what was wrong. Caleb paused, then asked with a normal expression when he had gotten to know Chloe. Leo, sensing the change in topic, asked if Caleb was trying to distract him. Caleb shot him a look and told him not to speak to him again. Leo obediently went quiet, pulling back and focusing on his phone. Caleb watched him for a moment, an unconscious frown forming. He wondered if he was really going to be that obedient. A second later, his phone vibrated wildly. He opened his text messages to see a string of new messages from Leo. One read, "Hey Caleb, I'm not talking." Another said, "Caleb, is typing okay?" And a third pleaded, "Caleb, please don't block me." The gala featured 3 prize drawings. Each ticket had a number, and the stubs were placed in a large box. The prize was unique. Each student drawn would get to choose a second number from the box, and that person would have to fulfill one request, witnessed by the entire auditorium. After watching the first 2 drawings, Leo realized it was essentially a public matchmaking event. Both of the winning girls had requested a date, and they left the stage with their newly acquired boyfriends for a 1-month trial period. This tradition was surprisingly successful. Most of the couples formed at the welcome gala stayed together until graduation. As a result, the event had gained a legendary status among the students, and many attended specifically with the goal of finding a partner. Leo finally remembered that the gala was often referred to by the literature students as Cinderella's fairy godmother's wand. He now fully understood how Chloe had planned to help him. When his number was called, Leo stood up, ticket stub in hand, feeling a mix of amusement and disbelief. Chloe stood on stage, microphone in hand, smiling as she teased that a handsome young man had been chosen. Many in the audience recognized Leo as the guy who had given her flowers and started cheering for him to confess his feelings to her. Chloe skillfully deflected the suggestions, holding the microphone out to Leo and giving him a subtle, encouraging look. She announced that he could now make a wish to the entire auditorium, and she, in her role as fairy godmother, would guarantee it would come true. The audience laughed. Chloe's implication was clear. She probably didn't know that Julian wasn't Caleb's actual brother and was willing to help Leo confess his feelings. It was a perfect opportunity, a guaranteed 1-month trial relationship. He was confident he could make Caleb fall for him in that time. He knew all of Caleb's likes and dislikes. All he needed was a chance to get close to him. And now that chance was here. But he couldn't take it. What were the odds of him drawing Caleb's number from over 1,000 stubs? And even if he did, there was still Julian to contend with. Leo met Chloe's expectant gaze and smiled calmly. He announced that he wished for the person he drew to do his laundry for a month. A wave of laughter spread through the audience, who seemed to find his request refreshingly innocent. Chloe's eyes widened slightly, her smile faltering for a moment as she asked if he was sure. He confirmed that he was. He walked to the prize box, drew out a slip of paper and handed it to her. With his back to the audience, he whispered to her to just call out whatever number she had drawn. Chloe gave a nearly imperceptible nod, but her eyes widened as she read the number on the paper. She gave Leo a meaningful look and then announced a number that sounded suspiciously sequential to his own. A bad feeling crept over him. In a moment of dreadful clarity, he looked out at the audience, just in time to see Caleb rise from his seat in the darkened auditorium. He whipped his head around to look at Chloe, whispering frantically that she wasn't supposed to rig it for him. Chloe innocently held up the slip of paper. There, in black and white, was the number she had just called. He had somehow hit the 1 in 1,000 chance. He should probably go buy a lottery ticket. Caleb stood before him, his face impassive, and asked if he still needed to repay him the 3/4 from earlier for a month of laundry. Caleb then added that he probably didn't need the money back, since he wouldn't be needing the laundry machine for the next month anyway. Leo wondered if it was too late to offer to do Caleb's laundry for a month instead. The following weekend, Caleb and Leo negotiated the terms of the deal over text. Caleb dictated that he would bring his clothes over, but that it would not include socks or underwear. He wrote with his usual bossy tone, as if Leo were the one who had to do the washing. Leo replied with a pitiful-looking message, saying that the clothes were too heavy for him to carry. Caleb paused, running a hand through his short hair, a thoughtful expression on his face. He knew how to handle someone like Julian, but he was often at a loss with Leo. When there was no immediate reply, Leo reread his own message. He had intended to sound pathetic, but it came across as a bit whiny. He remembered that Caleb hated it when people were clingy. He sent another message, and to his dismay, he had once again used an overly familiar tone. He asked Caleb if he would come to his place, and in exchange, he would only have to come 3 times that month. The message was practically dripping with cloying sweetness. Caleb glanced at the text, and with a sigh of resignation, he agreed. The hallway of the international student dorm was quiet and empty. Caleb stood outside Leo's door, knocking for so long that he began to suspect Leo wasn't even there and had tricked him. Finally, the door creaked open a few inches. Leo stood in the darkened doorway, his face mostly hidden, only his eyes visible as he stared out silently. Caleb rested a hand on the doorframe, a look of exasperation on his face. He asked if Leo was filming a horror movie, keeping the room dark in the middle of the day. Hearing Caleb's familiar voice, Leo slowly came to his senses. He opened the door wider, pressing a finger to his lips in a shushing motion as he whispered for Caleb to come in quietly. Caleb didn't move, his eyes scanning the room behind Leo. The curtains were drawn tight, and the only light came from a small desk lamp. He asked where his roommate was. Leo, not understanding the implication, replied that Evan was out shopping. Caleb raised an eyebrow and asked bluntly what Leo was doing alone in a dark room, implying something indecent. He looked as if he would turn and leave without hesitation if Leo confirmed his suspicions. Leo was momentarily stunned, wondering when his image in Caleb's eyes had fallen so low. He quickly pushed the thought aside and, without another word, grabbed Caleb's arm, pulled him inside, and slammed the door shut. The series of actions was so swift that if Leo hadn't refrained from locking the door, Caleb might have thought he was about to be forcibly seduced. He shot Leo a cold look, his gaze fixed on the hand gripping his wrist, and told him to let go. Leo slowly released his grip, secretly rubbing the spot where his fingers had touched Caleb's skin. He then led Caleb to the bathroom door. Just before opening it, he looked at him earnestly and asked him to promise that after he finished the laundry, he would still let him pursue him. Caleb gave him a sardonic look and pushed past him, opening the bathroom door himself. When he saw the two large hampers of clothes and bedding on the floor, he froze mid-step. He turned back, his face expressionless, and asked if bedsheets and duvet covers counted as clothes. Leo's eyes widened in feigned surprise as he asked if they didn't. If his performance hadn't been so over the top, Caleb might have actually believed him. For a fleeting moment, an unidentifiable emotion stirred within Caleb. He realized he had only known this person for a little over a month and knew nothing about his background. Yet he instinctively felt that Leo was the type who had grown up in a wealthy family, never having to do his own laundry. Back at his computer, Leo put on his headphones, feeling a little disappointed. The hamper of bedding had been for himself. He had imagined them sitting together, washing clothes like a domestic couple. Unfortunately, his dad had chosen that moment to video call. On the screen, his father asked what time it was over there and if his roommate was back yet. Leo confidently replied that it was only 8 in the evening and still early. Unaware that his son was back in the country, his father asked what he had for dinner and if he had enough money. He offered to send more. Leo assured him he had eaten in the dining hall and had plenty of money. He was about to suggest they end the call when a flat, emotionless voice interrupted from behind him. Almost immediately, his father asked in confusion why he could hear someone else speaking Chinese, when his roommate was supposed to be American. Leo stiffened. Caleb's deep voice came again, asking about his underwear. In the same instant, Leo shot up from his chair, shoving his laptop to the side with one hand and clamping his other hand over the mouth of the person behind him. His palm covered Caleb's lips, but in his haste, his index finger slipped between them and was suddenly enveloped by the warm, soft interior of Caleb's mouth. The room fell silent. Leo was frozen in shock. Caleb stood there, a pair of Leo's black underwear dangling from one finger, his face as dark as a thundercloud. Snapping out of it, Leo quickly pulled his finger out of Caleb's mouth, hiding the hand behind his back. With his other hand, he snatched the underwear from Caleb. In his rush, his elbow knocked against the laptop, and the headphone cord came unplugged. Caleb, his face grim, pressed his lips together, his eyes fixed on the laptop behind Leo. A cold smile touched his lips, and he started to speak again. Panicked, Leo raised his hand to cover his mouth once more. Seeing his movement, Caleb's eyes narrowed, his expression clearly saying, "You dare touch my mouth with the hand that just touched your underwear, and you'll see what happens." Leo's mind went blank. In a moment of pure desperation, his hand dropped, and his lips met Caleb's. He closed his eyes tightly, not daring to look at him. He didn't even notice Caleb's brief moment of stunned silence, his gaze fixed on Leo's trembling eyelashes. From the laptop, his father's tinny voice floated out, asking if this was his new boyfriend. With a loud snap, Leo slammed the laptop shut. He touched his own lips in disbelief. When he came to his senses, he saw Caleb's hand raised high in the air. He immediately dropped into a crouch, covering his head, and pleaded for Caleb not to hit him, that it wasn't on purpose. Caleb retorted, asking if that meant it was premeditated. He grabbed a tissue and wiped his own lips, then nudged the person on the floor with his foot, telling him to get up, that he was never going to hit him. Leo asked if he was sure. Caleb swore he wouldn't. Reassured, Leo slowly stood up. Just as he did, Caleb's arm shot out again, and before he could react, 2 fingers pinched his nose hard. Caleb's voice was sharp as he demanded to know who gave him the guts to kiss him. Leo's face turned red as he begged for mercy, his voice muffled. Caleb didn't relent. Finally, in a fit of desperation, Leo yelled that he had only kissed him, asking if Caleb thought he was some kind of delicate maiden from a bygone era, that a single kiss wouldn't make him fall apart. Caleb calmly replied that even a delicate maiden wouldn't fall apart from a single kiss. Leo rubbed at the corner of his eye. Whether from the force of the pinch or actual pain, when he lowered his hand, his eye was slightly red. Caleb's expression softened, and his grip loosened. Leo quickly pulled away. His nose was throbbing, and he knew it must be red. He looked up, annoyed, and said that if it was such a big deal, then Caleb could just kiss him back. He then took a large step back, his hands protectively covering his nose. Seeing that Caleb made no further move, he let out a small sigh of relief. His fingers slowly lowered from his nose and brushed against his own lips. His gaze drifted uncontrollably to Caleb's mouth. He couldn't help but run his tongue over his own lips. Caleb warned him to stop staring at his mouth. Leo obediently looked away, but his Adam's apple bobbed slowly, the sound of him swallowing loud in the quiet room. He seemed to have reached the end of his rope and fell silent. After a long pause, Caleb's expression became distant and cold again. His voice was flat and logical as he delivered a series of sharp, undeniable truths. He asked Leo if he knew how annoying he was. Leo stood frozen, his expression blank. Caleb continued, saying that Leo had just appeared out of nowhere, full of a strange confidence and an unsettling familiarity with him. He was constantly talking, throwing around the word like without a shred of shame, his words a confusing mix of truth and lies. He was constantly doing outrageous things, disrupting Caleb's life. He had never met anyone so infuriating. He gave Leo one last, cool glance, then turned and walked out of the room, leaving a deep frown on his face as if lost in thought. Caleb walked away without a second thought. For the next 3 days, life went on as usual. He ate, slept, and played games with his guild online every night. On the 4th day, he suddenly realized he hadn't seen Leo at all. He tried to recall their last encounter, but all he could picture were Leo's wide, glistening eyes, an image that refused to leave his mind. It wasn't until he was called on in his advanced math class and found himself staring at the blackboard, his mind a complete blank, that he admitted to himself he could no longer pretend not to notice Leo's absence. In fact, he cared a great deal. He cared so much he didn't want to play games, so much that he was spacing out in class, so much that he found himself smoking on the balcony late at night. Marcus came up behind him, a cigarette in his own mouth, and clapped him on the shoulder. He asked why Caleb was smoking when he had supposedly quit a long time ago. Caleb snapped back to reality, admitting he didn't know what he was doing. Marcus asked if he was heartbroken. Caleb's pupils contracted slightly. Marcus just shook his head and said that if he was heartbroken, he should try to win the person back, not hide out here smoking. He couldn't imagine who would break up with Caleb. One of Marcus's comments must have struck a nerve, because Caleb suddenly stood up, stubbed out his cigarette, and thanked him. The next day was Saturday. Caleb got dressed, shaved, and sent a text to Leo. After a long wait with no reply, he grabbed his keys and headed for Leo's apartment building. Evan answered the door, leaning against the frame and yawning as he mumbled that if he was looking for Leo, he had already gone back. Caleb froze, asking where he had gone back to. Evan said America and asked if he didn't know. America? Caleb stared at Evan, his voice like ice as he demanded to know when he had left. Evan checked his phone and said it was that morning, a flight that had departed 40 minutes ago. He explained that Leo had filed a request with the school to leave early. Caleb didn't wait to hear the rest. He turned and strode away, his pace urgent. He hailed a cab to the airport. The terminal was a chaotic sea of people and luggage. Announcements of departing flights echoed intermittently through the hall. Caleb stood in the middle of the lobby, phone clenched in his hand, a knot of anxiety tightening in his chest. He suddenly regretted the harsh words he had said to Leo. He frantically searched the boarding gates, but among the countless faces, the one he was looking for was nowhere to be seen. When he heard the announcement that the final boarding for Leo's flight was complete, his heart sank. He realized his back was soaked with sweat. A wave of regret washed over him, so powerful it felt like it was drowning him. The thought of Leo returning to America and them never seeing each other again was unbearable. He pulled out his wallet, but his hands were shaking so badly he couldn't open the zipper. He cursed under his breath, then closed his eyes and took a long, shuddering breath. He tried to open his wallet again, but his hands froze. He stood there for a long time in silence. It was noon in Beijing. Outside, the sun was bright. Inside, the room was filled with a damp warmth. Leo, still reeling from the blow delivered by the person he loved, sat in front of his computer and called out weakly to his dad. His father replied, asking when he had returned to the country and why he had kept it a secret. Leo explained that he was afraid his dad would send him back to America. His father scoffed, asking if he thought he was that unreasonable. He then remarked that Leo's new boyfriend looked surprisingly familiar. Leo sighed, correcting him that he hadn't even won the guy over yet, and that he didn't have a new boyfriend because he'd never had an old one. He reminded his dad that even though he had come out to him, he had never brought anyone home. His father chuckled smugly, saying that he thought he was being sneaky back in high school. He told Leo that he knew everything, including about his crush on that brilliant student from the class next door, Caleb, the one all the teachers praised at parent-teacher conferences. He asked if that wasn't the reason Leo had suddenly decided to start studying. Leo was stunned that his dad had known all along. His father continued, saying that his new boyfriend looked just like that handsome Caleb. Leo didn't even have the energy to explain the situation. He ended the video call, kicked off his slippers and flopped onto his bed, burying his face in his pillow. He held his breath for as long as he could, then finally rolled over onto his back, gasping for air as if he was finally releasing all the pent-up frustration from Caleb's rejection. He wouldn't give up. If the Caleb from 10 years in the future knew he gave up this easily, he would laugh at him for being less capable than his 19-year-old self. The 30-year-old Caleb's scornful expression was easy to imagine. The photos of Caleb doing Leo's laundry, posted on the university's online forum by the student council, were a hot topic for days. The news even reached the neighboring colleges. When Julian heard about it, he frantically texted Caleb, demanding an explanation. Caleb simply replied that it was a requirement from the welcome gala. Julian, unsatisfied, got a copy of Caleb's class schedule and skipped his own class to find him in the computer science lab. He arrived just as Chloe was asking Caleb to go hiking with her that weekend. He stormed in, his tone demanding, and declared that he was going too. Caleb's voice was stern as he asked Julian why he wasn't in class. Julian ignored the question, stubbornly repeating that he was going on the hike. The atmosphere grew tense. Chloe, sensing the impending conflict, stepped in to mediate. She said it was fine if Julian wanted to come, and told him the meeting time and place. Julian's expression softened slightly, and he reached out to take Caleb's arm, but Caleb sidestepped his touch. He warned Julian that he could come, but if he caused any trouble, he would be left on the mountain to find his own way back. Chloe watched them silently, thinking that Julian seemed a bit too attached to Caleb. Her thoughts were interrupted by her phone vibrating. She opened her messages and saw a reply from Leo confirming that he was free on Saturday and would join them. Chloe smiled. She liked Caleb, but she also liked Leo. Since she couldn't win Caleb over herself, she was more than happy to help Leo. On Saturday, members of the basketball team were also going on the hike. Chloe, as the organizer, was waiting at the school gate early. Caleb arrived with Marcus. Though Caleb occasionally played basketball with them, he wasn't on the team. Marcus was. The bus was parked nearby, but the driver was at a local diner, and the air inside the bus was stuffy. Caleb stood with his back to the gate, talking to some of the other guys. Suddenly, a hand appeared from behind him, holding a breakfast burrito and a carton of milk. The burrito was smothered in red hot sauce. The guys all stopped talking, assuming a girl was trying to give Caleb breakfast. But when they looked, they saw a tall, handsome guy in a black baseball cap. Leo lifted the brim of his cap slightly, a wide smile on his face as he asked Caleb if he had eaten breakfast. Caleb's eyes showed a flicker of surprise, but his voice was cool as he asked if Leo was on the basketball team. Leo's smile didn't falter as he explained that Chloe had invited him. Caleb said he had already eaten. Leo nodded cheerfully and, without trying to persuade him further, scanned the faces of the other guys, his eyes landing on Marcus. He walked over, slinging an arm over Marcus's shoulder, and offered him the breakfast, saying he remembered that Marcus liked hot sauce on his burritos. Caleb glanced at Leo, who was completely oblivious to his stare, his attention focused entirely on Marcus. Marcus happily took the food, thanking him and asking how he knew his preference for hot sauce. Leo explained that Liam had told him. Marcus asked him what his major was and if he played basketball, suggesting he join the team. Leo regretfully replied that despite his height, he couldn't play. Just then, Chloe called out that everyone was here and it was time to get on the bus. Marcus nudged him, telling him to come sit with him. Leo nodded absently, his first instinct to turn and call for Caleb, only to find that he was no longer standing there. Leo was one of the last to board the bus, worried that the seat next to Caleb would be taken. To his dismay, he saw Julian already sitting there. He muttered under his breath about the little pest and headed towards the back where Marcus was waving at him. As he passed, he glanced at Julian, who shot him a look of pure animosity. Chloe, sitting in the front, saw the exchange. She texted Leo, asking if he and Julian didn't get along, saying she wouldn't have invited him if she had known. Leo quickly typed back, "How could we get along? I'm after his boyfriend." Chloe replied, "Julian isn't Caleb's brother?" Leo's response was swift. "Of course not." The bus ride to the mountain took about 2 hours. Leo, sitting by the window, tried to nap, but Marcus offered him an earbud. Leo accepted, and the moment he put it in, he was blasted with the sound of heavy metal. He had forgotten Marcus's taste in music. Any sleepiness he might have felt was instantly gone. Marcus asked him if he wanted to come to their basketball game against a rival school next week. Leo vaguely recalled that game. He remembered that their starting forward couldn't play, and Marcus had ended up asking Caleb to fill in. He murmured that he'd heard their forward had a family emergency. Marcus was surprised and confirmed that they had asked Caleb to play instead. Leo looked towards the front of the bus and asked Caleb if he was playing in the game next week. Caleb turned, his gaze lingering for a moment on the earbud cord connecting Leo and Marcus. Leo was confused by his expression. Caleb slowly turned back around without answering. Julian interjected that he would also be going to the game and asked Marcus to save him a seat. Caleb, without turning, told him to do so, then put on his own headphones and closed his eyes. Julian shot Leo a triumphant look. Leo ignored him and told Marcus to save him a seat in the front row as well. Julian then added a request for Marcus to save him a seat that wasn't next to Leo's. When the bus arrived at the base of the mountain, everyone piled out. While the others went to the restroom, Chloe pulled Leo aside. She asked him what was going on, that she had never heard Caleb mention having a boyfriend. She suggested that it might be better for him to wait until they broke up before pursuing him. Leo nodded, assuring her he knew his limits. He wasn't just saying it to appease her. He was genuinely trying to navigate the situation carefully. He stretched and then walked over to Caleb, clearing his throat and asking if he could come to watch him play next week. Caleb turned and glanced at him, asking if he wouldn't come even if he said no. Leo smiled and said that if Caleb told him not to come, he wouldn't. Caleb then told him not to come. Leo's face fell, and he walked away without another word. Caleb waited, surprised that Leo hadn't tried to argue or plead with him as he usually would. He checked his phone, wondering if he had accidentally muted it, but there were no new messages. He glanced over at Leo, who was now deep in conversation with some of the basketball players. Caleb pressed his lips together, then turned to Julian, who was returning from the restroom. He thrust his backpack at him and told him to hold it. Julian, confused but compliant, took the bag, wondering if the heat was making Caleb irritable. On the climb up to the halfway point, Leo kept his promise and didn't speak to Caleb. Even Julian was puzzled by his sudden change in behavior. By midday, the sun was scorching. The group stopped to rest by a small pool of water. Caleb sat by the edge, his eyes closed, his shirt slightly lifted, revealing a hint of his toned stomach. Leo, from his perch on a large rock, pulled a second baseball cap, identical to his own, from his backpack and held it out to Caleb, asking if he wanted it. After a moment of silence, Caleb took the cap and put it on, the brim obscuring most of his face. Julian moved closer to Caleb, possessively taking up the empty space beside him. Leo just shrugged and went back to his phone. When Chloe called for everyone to get ready to leave, Leo looked up, stealing a glance at Caleb, only to find Caleb already looking at him. Caleb was standing by the rock, arms crossed, the brim of his cap tilted up, his eyes thoughtful as he studied him. Leo was so startled that his mouth fell open, and in that moment of distraction, he lost his footing and tumbled face first into the pool with a large splash. He couldn't help but think how familiar the scene was, except this time, his fall was far less graceful. The water wasn't deep, but as he tried to stand, a pair of hands gripped him under the arms and lifted him out. He wiped the water from his face and found himself looking directly into Caleb's eyes. His backpack and phone were sitting safely on the sun-drenched bank, along with Caleb's own sneakers and socks. Everyone else was staring at them, dumbfounded. Leo blinked, shaking the water from his eyelashes, and then burst out laughing. He told Caleb it was a good thing there were no girls around to see his bad habit of leaving his socks anywhere, or he would lose points. Caleb ignored his teasing and, after stepping back onto the bank, squatted down, his back to the sun, and looked him in the eye. He said his name. Leo, still standing in the water, answered dumbly. The sun was hot, the air was dry, and his hat was floating on the surface of the pool. He was soaked, his shoes were waterlogged, and his phone's fate was uncertain. It was possibly the worst moment of his day, but his heart was pounding wildly in his chest. Caleb asked if he was planning to walk back to campus naked. Leo climbed out of the water and sat on a dry patch of ground to take off his wet shoes and socks. He saw Caleb start to stand and didn't bother to look up. But then, just before he was fully upright, Caleb casually said that he should remember to have Marcus save him a seat at the game next week. Leo's hands froze, his eyes widening with a surge of joy. A few feet away, Julian watched them, a look of pure hatred in his eyes. He turned to walk away, but felt a hand grab the collar of his shirt. He looked back in surprise. Caleb looked down at him and told him to come with him. In a secluded spot, 100 meters away from the others, Caleb bluntly asked Julian if he was enjoying their little love game. Julian stiffened, biting his lip and saying nothing. Caleb continued, stating that Julian had said he liked him and wanted a response, which he had given. But Julian hadn't been satisfied and had wanted to try a real relationship, which he had also agreed to. He then pointed out that their trial had proven to be useless. His voice grew stern as he told Julian to look at him and tell him if their relationship had changed in any meaningful way over the past 2 months. Julian refused to look up, unable to form a rebuttal. Caleb told him that not everyone would spoil him like his family did, and that their trial period was over. He said he hoped Julian would learn to control his emotions around him in the future, or simply stay away until he could. Julian finally looked up, his eyes sharp, and asked if this was because of Leo, claiming that Caleb had said he didn't like him. Caleb replied coolly that he was under no obligation to answer his questions. He then brought up an incident from their sophomore year of high school. When Julian had taken a confession letter a girl had written to him and posted it on the school's public bulletin board. He stated that if Julian didn't have something hanging over his head, held by Leo, he would never have allowed him to pursue Caleb so freely. Julian fell silent, his silence a tacit admission. When he finally spoke, his lips trembled as he asked if their years of friendship meant less than the 1 month Caleb had known Leo. In a final, desperate plea, he asked if their long history couldn't make Caleb choose him just once. Caleb looked at him with a strange expression and said that his choice, of course, would follow his heart. He then said calmly that he chose Leo. After speaking, Caleb himself seemed surprised by his own answer, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. Julian's face crumbled, the color draining from his cheeks. When they returned to the group, Julian mumbled that he was feeling unwell and would take the tourist bus back alone. Chloe expressed her concern, and he responded absently. He then turned to Leo and said he needed to talk to him. They walked to a nearby shaded area. Julian, forgoing his usual theatrics, looked at Leo with empty, lifeless eyes and asked why he had come back to bother another Caleb. He didn't understand what he meant by another Caleb. He knew there was only one Caleb in the world. But he could sense that Julian's question was different from their usual petty squabbles. Julian didn't seem to expect an answer. He continued, his voice low, saying that Leo should know how much Caleb loved him. Yet he had come back here and forgotten him, shamelessly trying to win the affection of another Caleb. He asked if Leo had ever considered what would happen to the Caleb he had left behind, if he didn't feel any guilt for what was essentially a betrayal. He laughed softly, a hollow sound. He pointed out the difference between the two Calebs, one with memories of their love and one with none, and asked if Leo truly believed this memoryless version was the one he loved. Leo was stunned into silence, but he quickly recovered, forcing a smile. He told Julian he had no obligation to answer his questions, reminding him that in Caleb's eyes, he would always be just a little brother. He then turned away, dismissing him. But after Julian left, Leo remained rooted to the spot, his head bowed. The confident facade crumbled, revealing a face pale with turmoil. Was he heartless? Was the 19-year-old Caleb the same one he loved? The secret he had buried deep inside was now exposed to the harsh light of day, and a sickening feeling twisted in his stomach. No matter how absurd Julian's words were, one point had struck a nerve, a point Leo had been too cowardly to face. He had never dared to imagine what had become of the Caleb he had left behind. The basketball game on Tuesday afternoon was packed. The gym was a cacophony of noise. Caleb was the star of the show, his every move met with cheers. He even pulled off an impressive layup at a crucial moment, sending the crowd into a frenzy. When the final whistle blew, girls were shouting his jersey number, confessing their love. Caleb paid them no mind. A cheerleader offered him a towel and water, but he politely refused and went straight to Marcus. He asked where the seats he had reserved were. Marcus, surprised, said that neither Julian nor Leo had come. Caleb could understand Julian not showing up after their conversation, but why wasn't Leo there? He couldn't understand it. He had spoken to him in the gentlest tone he could muster. Why hadn't he come? Caleb wasn't one to dwell on problems. He grabbed his shirt and said he had to leave. Marcus called after him, reminding him about the celebration dinner, but Caleb was already gone. Leo sat on the planter outside the gym, his heart sinking with each person that exited. He had been so caught up in Julian's confusing words that he had missed the game. He remembered how incredible Caleb had been in this same game in his past. He had come to a realization. His dad was still his dad, just a decade younger. Why would Caleb be any different? The 19-year-old Caleb and the 30-year-old Caleb were the same person, just at different points in time. Julian's talk of two worlds was a desperate lie. He had allowed himself to be trapped in that ridiculous fantasy for 2 whole days. He realized he was slowly being assimilated by his younger self, by the vibrant life around him, forgetting the life he had left behind. His thoughts were a tangled mess. He stood up, pulling out his phone to call Caleb, when he felt a heavy hand press down on his neck and another cover his eyes. A voice artificially low asked, "Guess who?" The only person he wanted to see was Caleb, but he knew instantly it wasn't his voice. Besides, the 19-year-old Caleb would never do something so childish. He said, without enthusiasm, that it was Marcus. The person behind him removed his hands, surprised, and asked how he knew. Leo didn't bother explaining their long history. He just asked if they had won the game and where Caleb was. Marcus replied that Caleb had left in a hurry a long time ago. Caleb had gone to the international student dorm, still in his basketball uniform. He knocked on the door until his patience wore thin. Finally, a slow, accented voice called from inside. Evan opened the door, a look of surprise on his face when he saw Caleb. He asked if he was looking for Leo. Caleb confirmed it. Evan leaned against the doorframe, a mischievous glint in his eye, and said he was out of luck, that he wasn't there. Caleb's brow furrowed as he asked where he had gone. Evan replied that he had probably gone to see his ex-boyfriend after being rejected by Caleb. An ex-boyfriend? Caleb scoffed, asking if Evan was trying to tell him Leo had gone back to America. Evan wagged a finger, clarifying that as far as he knew, Leo's ex was a dark-haired, dark-eyed Chinese guy. Caleb gave him a skeptical look, not taking his words seriously, and pulled out his phone to call Leo. It went to voicemail twice. His expression darkened, and he turned and walked away, his pace quickening. Evan slowly closed the door and sent a text to Leo. Leo was at a bubble tea shop, trying to call Caleb, but the line was busy. He then managed to leave his phone at the shop and didn't realize it for 2 hours. When he finally went back, he asked the girl at the counter if she had seen his phone. She held up a black phone and asked if it was his. She apologized, explaining that it had been ringing non-stop, so she had answered it once, thinking it might be him calling to find it. She then pointed behind him. Leo took his phone, but didn't see who she was pointing at. He wondered who had called him so many times. A familiar voice from behind him said, "I did." Leo spun around to see Caleb standing there. His lips pressed into a thin line, his hair messy, looking utterly exhausted. Leo followed him to a corner table, his voice soft as he asked if Caleb had been looking for him. Caleb asked where he had been and why he hadn't come to the game. He then asked, his voice sharp, if he had been out with his ex-boyfriend. Leo, taken aback, decided to lie, saying he was sorry, that he had overslept. Caleb watched him, his expression unreadable. Leo, feeling a pang of guilt, added that it was true. Caleb then pointed out that Leo had a habit of rubbing his nose when he was lying. He reached out and grabbed his chin, his voice sharp as he demanded to know how he was supposed to believe Leo actually liked him when he was acting like this. Leo's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. Caleb released his chin, grumbling under his breath. He asked if Leo was even listening to him. Leo, in a daze, nodded. A slow smile spread across his face, and he half leaned across the table, his voice hopeful as he asked what Caleb meant by that. Caleb just said he hadn't said anything. Leo insisted that he had heard him. Caleb told him to shut up. Leo, frustrated, slapped the table and stood up, demanding to know if Caleb was a man and why he couldn't just say what he meant. Caleb crossed his arms and smirked, saying that now he would probably never hear what he wanted to hear. At the team dinner that night, Caleb sat across from him and didn't look at him once. Leo, feeling like an outsider, couldn't just demand to sit next to him. Everyone was drinking, and as the guest player, Caleb was being toasted by everyone. Leo stood up and tried to clink glasses with him, but Caleb barely acknowledged him, just tipping his glass in his direction. Leo, undeterred, subtly extended his leg under the table and kicked Caleb's shin. Caleb continued talking to Marcus as if nothing had happened. Leo kicked him again, a little harder. This time, Marcus paused and looked around, asking who was kicking him under the table. Only then did Caleb turn and give Leo a knowing look. Leo just smiled. After dinner, they all went to a karaoke bar. During a game of cards, Leo lost and was sentenced to do 20 push-ups with the only girl in the room on his back. Just then, Caleb walked in. He saw the scene and intervened, saying it wasn't fair for so many guys to pick on one girl. Marcus suggested an alternative. Caleb could lie on the floor, and Leo could do the push-ups over him. He called out to Leo, but he didn't respond. He was staring into space, lost in a memory. He didn't know how to answer. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The flashing lights of the karaoke room were disorienting, and for a moment, he wasn't sure where he was. But the steady beat of his heart reminded him that this was real. After so many years, with a few detours, he had returned to this exact point in time. This basketball game and the after-party were seared into his memory because it was when he and Caleb had come out to their friends. This time around, they weren't even together yet. But in some strange way, the butterfly effect of his return seemed to have faded. The same room, the same game, the same words from Marcus. It all felt like his two lives were finally converging. His heart pounded in his chest, a wild mix of emotions blocking his throat. He couldn't speak, not because he didn't know what to say, but because there was too much to say. He finally just nodded silently. Caleb folded his jersey and placed it on the carpet as a makeshift pillow, then lay down, his legs slightly apart. Leo placed his hands on either side of Caleb's head, his feet planted on the floor between Caleb's legs. He was suspended directly above him, close enough to see the flecks of light in Caleb's dark eyes. He slowly lowered himself down, careful not to touch him. Caleb's face grew larger in his vision, so close he could see the fine hairs on his skin. His gaze traced the line of Caleb's brow, down his nose, and finally rested on his lips. Their breath mingled, a warm, tickling sensation on his skin, like the prelude to a kiss. Caleb's eyes narrowed slightly, and his lips moved, silently mouthing 3 words. "What are you looking at?" Leo quickly looked away, focusing on completing the push-ups. He was so lost in thought, remembering how this moment had played out before. Back then, he had only managed 15 push-ups before giving up. Caleb had then sat up, pulled him close, and kissed him. He remembered the stunned silence of their friends. He remembered the soft, warm pressure on his lips, a sensation that suddenly became real, pulling him from his memories. He opened his eyes wide to see Caleb's eyelashes, inches from his own. In the few seconds he had been lost in thought, the man beneath him had sat up and was kissing him. Reality and memory merged. The expressions on his friends' faces were identical to how he remembered them. His mind slowly processed what was happening. Just like then, he was completely at a loss for words. He also remembered what Caleb had said back then, something about how liking a guy wasn't something to be ashamed of. The Caleb in front of him now had one hand cupping his face, the other on his waist. His voice a low rumble against his lips as he asked, with a hint of a smile, "Didn't you say I could kiss you back?" Leo's eyes filled with tears, and just like that, they were together. The first day of their new relationship, they had not only come out to all their friends, but Leo had also been teased relentlessly for being so emotional that a kiss could make him cry. Even Caleb had looked at him in surprise, asking if he was really crying. Later that night, back in his dorm, he realized he still didn't know if Caleb had officially broken up with Julian. He tossed and turned, then finally tiptoed out to the balcony to call him. He told himself he would only let it ring 3 times. On the 3rd ring, Caleb picked up. Leo took a deep breath and whispered Caleb's name, asking if he was still awake. Caleb replied that he was about to sleep and told him to get to the point. Leo said, "I like you." Caleb just said, "Oh." Leo asked, "Do you like me?" Caleb hung up. Leo immediately called back, pleading for him not to hang up. He finally asked the question that had been bothering him. Had he broken up with Julian? There was a long silence on the other end. Leo's heart pounded nervously. Caleb finally answered that they had already broken up, and that he had never liked him anyway. His voice was tinged with exasperation as he told Leo he needed to be more careful, or he would end up getting played by some two-timing jerk. Without thinking, Leo replied that there wouldn't be a next time. Caleb was silent for a moment. Leo couldn't help but smile, teasing that all that coding must have fried his brain. He explained that now that he had won him over, there was no possibility of a next time. After hanging up, he happily kissed his phone. He knew that while Caleb liked him, it wasn't love yet, but he wasn't worried. They had all the time in the world. The next morning, Leo woke up before his alarm. He quickly got ready and, despite Evan's confused questions, skipped his first class to go find Caleb for breakfast. The walk from his dorm to Caleb's was long, but he didn't mind. Caleb, who had no morning classes, answered the door, looking surprised to see him. It took him a second to remember that he had impulsively acquired a very troublesome boyfriend the day before. He let him in and sat down wearily. Leo walked over and gently touched his chin, remarking that he needed to shave again. He then offered to do it for him. Caleb mumbled that he didn't need help. As Leo leaned in closer, Caleb instinctively turned his head away. Leo just hummed and pressed a soft kiss to his stubbled chin, then pulled back to gauge his reaction. Caleb stared at him for a long moment, then reached up and tilted his chin up. Leo immediately covered his mouth, his voice muffled as he asked if Caleb had brushed his teeth yet. Caleb sighed and went to the bathroom. He brushed his teeth, washed his face, and began to apply shaving cream. Leo stood silently in the doorway, watching him. When Caleb noticed him, he turned, razor in hand, only to see Leo pointing his phone camera at him. Leo told him to smile, then quickly changed his mind, saying he looked better with a straight face. He then asked if he could change his lock screen back to a better photo of him. Caleb reminded him that he had made him delete the best one. Leo then asked if he had kissed anyone else under the fireworks. Caleb said no. Leo asked if it was true. Caleb said yes. Leo asked if they could go see fireworks that Saturday. Caleb said yes. Leo asked if they could kiss under the fireworks. Caleb said yes. Leo then asked, "Caleb, do you like me?" And Caleb, with a final soft hum, gave him the answer that made his world feel complete.